I'm not optimistic. I'm just cocky. That's why I'm going to tell you UCLA is going to hit the over this season in 2024.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I am your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, review. Thanks for your support. If you're an everydayer, we're getting back on that everyday grind, so thanks for sticking with it. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them out all today at nissanusa.com. I am going to push a little further. I'm going to push the envelope today. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be very bold. And we're going to revisit this after spring practice, and we're going to revisit this right before. So this is my first big projection. This is my, as some people like to say, way too early bold projection for the 2024 football season for DeShaun Foster, Eric Bieniemy. Is it even fair to do it now? We're going to do it anyway. The over-under set by FanDuel for UCLA's win-loss total this year is 5.5. I've already probably discussed it, but let's talk about it again here today about, all right, the Bruins, they got a Big Ten schedule. They have got to travel a lot this year, including a trip in August to Hawaii, trip to LSU, trip to Penn State, Rutgers, and Nebraska. Their closest road game is Washington, and still that's up the Pacific Northwest. This is a schedule that can look very, very, very daunting to the most even general college football fans. That's why FanDuel, optimistically, or maybe sitting here, I don't know, they say 5.5 for the UCLA win-loss total. What's happened since? Everything. You got a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, a slew of coaching changes left, right, general managers, recruiting coordinators, even a new defensive coordinator at UCLA, hired and named, promoted Ikaika Malloy prior to the hiring of DeShaun Foster. Lots of different coaching changes, from running backs coach to your offensive line. Things being shifted around at the linebacking core with Ken Norton Jr. leaving and going to the NFL route. So where is UCLA going to head? Well, they've got, in my mind, 2 winnable non-conference games, an offense that's practically all but returning, hopefully an improved presence in the offensive line, and a lot of question marks on defense, where I was hoping they can reload instead of needing to rebuild the vaunted defense led by their crazy good pass rush in 2023. You got Hawaii. I'm going to chalk that up to a dub for UCLA. I'm cocky enough to see, we've talked about this, what UCLA's schedule looks like, right? New coaches, new quarterbacks, all across the Big Ten schedule, from Hawaii, Indiana, everything in between. LSU's replacing their Heisman winner. Oregon's replacing a quarterback. As tough as Penn State is, am I really afraid of Drew Aller? But it's going to be tough to win at Happy Valley. That's very serious. Minnesota's changing quarterbacks. Rutgers there's all sorts of things going around and around and around for UCLA. I realistically think this team, by the time they're heading into LSU, could be 2-0 a good 3 weeks into their season. 3 whole weeks. That's what? Officially, week 3 for the Bruins will be their 4th week of gameplay, because they start August 31st and then go September 14th and 21st. So realistically, this team can start 2-0 at Hawaii. They should absolutely win that game in a very small football complex. I've seen it. Very tiny. Not the Aloha Bowl anymore. That is left to ruins at the moment. You've got the tiny complex. It's not called the tiny complex. Don't get me twisted here. It is a smaller football complex that they're trying to wait and see how that goes over in Hawaii and Honolulu. So, you got Hawaii, got Indiana. I'd like to believe the Bruins can chalk up 2 wins there. I'm confident enough. Yes, they've struggled against them dang Bulldogs, but I think the Bruins can go knock off Fresno in the regular season finale. So I'm thinking that's 3 wins there. You're telling me in their games, you got to chalk up 3 more wins? Absolutely, I think the Bruins can do that. Absolutely. You're talking about a Nebraska team that's got a freshman quarterback probably at the helm. You've got Washington, who is having to replace Michael Penix. Yes, Oregon's tough. That's still a home game for UCLA. And they're having to replace Bo Nix. All right, I know they've got different types of quarterbacks. They've got their Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore and everything. So that'll be quite the welcome reception with him on the sideline when he comes back to the Rose Bowl on September 28th. Still, up and down the list, a lot of quarterbacks being replaced. And hey, we joke about UCLA being a joke. Wasn't it a few months ago that despite all the turmoil, the Bruins smacked around USC, Caleb Williams, and that Trojan football team? Right? Yes, they've got some QBs. Miller Moss could be the talk of town, whatever. What's going to happen at USC? Remember, the Bruins still smacked them in the Coliseum. So let's not say that's not going to be, it's a tough game always, but still look up and down this schedule. I think the Bruins can absolutely go bowling, jump past that FanDuel number of 5.5, and somewhere in the Big Ten, they could be pushing 3 to 4 wins in a 9-game Big Ten schedule. Dare I say 5-4? Good Lord, the Bruins have had some terrible performances in football and men's basketball in their final Pac-12 seasons. It's been pathetic. When they could have competed for more in both, they have fallen just short. Well, I hope in the first Big Ten schedule, the revised Big Ten schedule after Oregon and Washington came to town with an offense with what I believe to be a pretty solid offensive coordinator, a genius, whether you debate about the Andy Reid or whether Sam Howell couldn't throw a pick in Washington or what's the fight of Eric Bieniemy, he is going to get this offense, I believe, working and clicking. Because, hey, think about who's at the portal. Nobody. They even brought Keegan Jones back. You think Eric Bieniemy's not going to know how to use Keegan Jones a little bit better? You think whoever UCLA switched things around for the special teams coordinating, right? You don't think they're going to have Keegan Jones returning kicks or something much better than what the Bruins had last year than Colson, Yankoff, right? It was just the goofiness that Chip Kelly had. Just think of the little minute details that we're just maybe gradually looking over. Chip Kelly probably put in a lot of things that we're not talking about that are very, very positive, that aren't going to come to the light of day to the rest of the UCLA fans. Yet, here we are. There's going to be minute things that his quirks just aren't going to be the same quirks that DeShaun Foster, Eric Bieniemy, or the rest of the staff are going to have that hopefully as a unit, I think can go knock off a combination of a Nebraska. You got Iowa at home. You know, that it's not at Iowa, although their defense is really good. Maybe with an offensive coordinator, they'll be unbeatable. That's still at home. Nebraska. Rutgers was very good. But you get Minnesota at home. I think the Bruins can compete for 6 wins this year. Absolutely. Bare minimum. I think the Bruins can definitely hit the over. Are they going to go blow past and get 10? That would be a shocking thing. That would make DeShaun Foster, in my mind, in the short list for National Coach of the Year if the Bruins are pushing double-digit wins this year. That's not what I'm touting. I'm simply saying the Bruins have enough, I think, with what they've hired and what they're going after, that UCLA certainly can get 6 wins. That's what I'm going with this bold take. Offense, they have enough to get 6 wins. And then to use that, project that, push forward, where you got a 2-year contract for Bieniemy, but if he's really successful, he's going to go to the NFL, I promise you. If the Bruins offense looks really good this year, he's not staying at UCLA. That is my thought for Eric Bieniemy. I could be wrong, but if the Bruins offense looks spectacular, blows and knocks the doors off everybody, beats the brakes off of the Iowa defense that's always so vaunted, puts up points in Happy Valley, right? Then you're going to see Bieniemy go. But that can set the stage for getting these 25 recruits to 26. Hey, the Rose Bowl's popping. And it wasn't because Dion came in. It's because the Bruins are good and bringing in the vibe of the Big Ten Conference. Hopefully more upgrades to facilities in the future. And then an improved look at localized recruiting with some good buzz. I'm believing this is a team that can do it and get to 6 wins. Minimum. My bold take of the day. Now we're going to talk about UCLA awards for men's basketball and what this Oregon State matchup brings for the Bruins coming up next on Locked On UCLA. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, hey, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. I'm an adventure man. I go on crazy adventures just about every day of life. That's what I'm doing. Heck, I'm even in the mode looking for a new car. I want to check out the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder, one of a few cars that Nissan's incredible lineup includes, because one, you've got a car that includes up to 8 expansive cargo capacity, can tow up to 6,000 pounds, 284 horsepower. It's there to answer the call. The 2024 Nissan Rogue Pull is perfect for city drives, great escapes, and it's a perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. All you got to do is take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or even the Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right. Here we go. Second segment, Locked On UCLA Pod. Zach with you guys, cruising on as the Bruins head to the Pac-12 Tournament. As it's been for quite some time, Mick Cronin talked about it in his media availability. That's going to come down to basically in his weekly press conference. He's known for a while since that Utah loss. This is the only path. They had a 1% chance if they had won the Utah game and the rest of their games. Not only did they not win that Utah game, they then lost a lot of games in a row. They went 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row on the losers column after the Utah game. 5 straight L's. Got the win against ASU to get at least 500 in Pac-12 play. All that's out the window. Mick Cronin says you're 0-0. It's March. It's time to get mad because this is a team that is capable, absolutely capable, young enough, fiery enough, good enough on defense to go out and win 4 games in 4 days. They can. They're just not good enough offensively to make most people believe that they can do it. This team is capable of winning 4 games in 4 days, and I think capable of at least getting to the Pac-12 semis, where if things prevail, looks like it would be a rematch against Arizona. Unless there's an upset, it would be either SC or Washington in that semifinal. But UCLA's first, most importantly, got to beat a team where they've already swept them in the regular season, but they did something UCLA could not. Oregon State held serve and actually beat Arizona, right? There's a week they swept ASU and Arizona this year. But UCLA has something Oregon State doesn't, and that's a win against them while Oregon State's looking for the one and only win. Wayne Tinkle is no stranger to crazy runs. Remember when the Bruins went on their long run in 2021 to the Final Four, Oregon State made a surprising run. Well, they went through tournament play and all of a sudden found themselves in the Elite Eights, surprisingly, right? So his team can absolutely, as a team that was in 12th place, having already beaten the first place team, they can dispatch of UCLA. They had some strong play. They can score. They played a lot of close games, most of those at home, dramatically in overtime, double overtime against arguably the worst teams in the country. And they've also beaten a team at the buzzer in Arizona at home who is on the short list or was for a 1 seed or a top 2 seed heading into the final week of play prior to the tournament. What does UCLA need to do? Well, in their 2 wins against Oregon State, one in December, the other one at the beginning of February, the Bruins were led by Adem Bona and Dylan Andrews, who averaged just a little over 15 points per game. And Mick Cronin talked about, what do you need for this team? What do most teams need at this time of the year? They need their stars to perform. And while we can debate about who the stars are, who the leaders are, Stefanovic, a leader in the, basically in the clubhouse, in the locker room, on the court, never gets off the floor. Him hitting threes, complete game changer. But arguably that star-like power, that athletic ability, that comes in your Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year at Adem Bona. Second straight year the Bruins have had the conference's Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think it was close either time with Caitlyn Clark or Adem Bona. Clearly, when he was on the floor for Adem this year, the Bruins are a different team. And when he's attacking, making all sorts of plays, there's a reason why. One, UCLA has one of the better scoring defenses. When UCLA allows less than 65 points, 65 or less, they are 13-4 this year. And when you have that, UCLA, keep Oregon State, a team who can score the basketball under 65. You get your 2 big players to average 15, get them hot and ready to roll. There you go. So UCLA, I'm keying on Dylan Andrews and Adem Bona specifically as two players who need to average 15 points, maybe throughout the tournament. But I'd like those two to score 15 or more. In this game, UCLA needs to have two players score 15 or more points. Offensively, doesn't matter who it is. Two players have to score 15 or more, unless one player scores 40. And the Bruins are not having that happen against Oregon State. It's just not going to happen. Alrighty, buddy. Two players score 15 or more, balance the scoring out, and keep Oregon State under 65. Because there will be a game they're going to have to outscore somebody. I don't think you want that to happen against Oregon State, who can score, and the Bruins, I think, can outscore Oregon State. You just don't want to get into a track meet in the first game of the week. You want a nice slow game where you're going up and down the court, you're looking for an easy dub, and you can put it away, save some juice in those legs for the rest of the week. Cronin's talk about we're trying to prepare for a 4-game and 4-week stretch, 4-game and 4-day stretch. That is what they're looking for. All right, that is what they're looking for, to go on a super long run and make it happen. They went on a long run, 25-4 in the final, 10 minutes against Arizona State. So this team is capable of going on big runs and is also capable of going extreme cold stretches. So for UCLA, two keys. Defense. If it doesn't show up, they probably are no-showing and they're going home. It's one thing that happens in game 2 or game 3 when recovery and rest is important and who's hot is important. But you no-show game 1 defensively, that clearly means the intensity is just not there for this team. All right. Unless Oregon State is hitting every shot with a hand in their face, they no-show in this game defensively. That's a sign that this team didn't want to be there. That's a sign that they did not really want to be there and care to compete. But they show up defensively. They can lose and compete. I just think they got to keep them under 65. Let's get aggressive. Keep them under 60. Keep them under 60, and you get a lot more ways for UCLA to win this game creatively. 3-pointers and free throws, which is what it took against Arizona State to not even get to 60. All right? That's what it took for UCLA. Keep it creative. Play good defense, and two players. I'm hoping Dylan Andrews and Adem Bona do what they did against Oregon State the first couple of times. I'm asking for those two or any two players to score 15. That means Stefanovic, who got red hot from downtown, do so against Oregon State. Maybe it's a surprise, excellent job from Brandon Williams in whatever role, starting or off the bench. Or Sebastian Mack, because we know when he's hot at the free throw line, getting jumpers, his offense is incredibly important to this team's success, especially when he plays semi-good defense. Hey, you mix those two things together, UCLA usually has a good game that evening. Okay? So you mix in your Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, a scrappy defense, some timely offense. Do that 4 days. Maybe we'll be talking tournament selection Sunday about some dreams, or we're already talking the portal next week. You know who's not going to be talking about the portal next week? The UCLA women, because they're in the tournament, and I would like them to go far for their first ever Final Four appearance in the NCAA era of women's basketball. All right, let's talk about what their potential brackets look like in bracketology next on Locked On UCLA. All right, no need to whine when your bracket gets busted in game 1 after you turn it in when the tournament starts. Don't get twisted. Don't get it twisted, because all you got to do is say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Every game. You can be busted every time, or you can be cashing in, because whether you're betting on a big upset or banking on a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing every single time on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get a $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That means bet on the 1 seed, get some chunk of change, and you got something to bet. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can pick who's even going to win it all. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right, cruising on, final segment of the Locked On UCLA podcast. Zach with you guys, cruising on. We're talking women's bracketology, all right? Where do the UCLA women slot themselves right now with basically all the tournaments done, just a lot of deliberating, and basically just waiting for a week because we want to see and hope, because most of the tournaments are done. They're not all done, but some of the big name conferences have already played while we fill out the rest of the brackets in other parts of the country. We're looking at who might be that top 16. For UCLA, they're not getting a 1 seed. I hope, I wish, but without beating USC, their case for a 1 seed is just not there. They needed to win the USC game, compete, if not beat Stanford, which would have solidified a 1 seed. At the moment, that UCLA loss to USC pushes the Bruins on the 2 line. But their competitive appeal in that game and their stack of wins, I think, will keep them out of South Carolina's region. Let's take a look at what the NCAA tournament looks like right now, more from a top-heavy side than a large 68 bracket side. Here, I'm looking at Charlie Cream's bracket from ESPN. You got South Carolina, number 1 overall seed. Pretty slam dunk right there based on what's happened. Utah as a 5 seed would be very intriguing considering those 2 teams already played points in that game. That would be interesting to see how that goes. And because of what UCLA's done already, they got Ohio State hosting a regional in Albany, in the Albany region with South Carolina. That means the Bruins, who I believe was ranked as high as 6 in the AP poll, would not be put in the same bracket as South Carolina. 1. All right, that's huge. USC hosting as a 1 seed, they'd be put with Texas, who I think they just beat out for a 2 seed. All right, that's huge. Let's take a look at the other number 1 seed. Well, that's none other than Stanford. That was going to be their Pac-12 champion. You don't want to give them too much love. Stanford and LSU, that is pretty spicy. That would be spicy. And because those 2 Pac-12 teams are 1 seeds, I would think that the committee is going to keep UCLA away from them. Obviously, there's different rules and weird curves and everything they do with selecting and travel and everything, especially for the early couple of rounds in the NCAA tournament to save money. A lot of it is cost-saving measures, too, even though they make so much money on the tournament, now the men and the women, that UCLA, they're going to be sent to Albany probably, so they have to go across the country after their first weekend of hosting. Hopefully leads them to the Sweet 16. You would have UCLA as a 2 seed in Pauley Pavilion. Looked like Ole Miss and Miami, a couple scrappy games. And then, you know who might slot up to be their 3 seed? UConn. That is a spicy matchup. Who did UCLA talk about when it came to in the preseason? They talked about wanting to be as great as the UConn greatness and taking them down. And lo and behold, what could it be? A healthier Paige Beckers, a UConn team that is definitely beatable this year with all their injuries. And UCLA, if that's who they slot up against in the Sweet 16 compared to last year's matchup in South Carolina, very doable, very tough, but very doable for the Bruins. Then you've got the likes of, all right, you can get to UConn. Then you've got Colorado, Oklahoma, in the Iowa regional as your 1 seed. That's what it's looking like right now in this bracketology that we're going over, where, hey, if the Bruins got to play Iowa, that would be spicy as an Elite 8 game. 2, would be great to end Caitlyn Clark's career. I think she's fantastic. I think that's a very winnable matchup for UCLA if Caitlyn Clark doesn't go for 90 points. So the way it's slotted out, even though the Bruins heartbreakingly fell short in the Pac-12 tournament semifinal against their bitter rival, 1, the way it's shaped up, it could be a glorious rivalry finale if everything goes to the dream. And this is all hypothetical. 2, I think of the regionals you want to be in, I would want UCLA to be in the Iowa regional. As scary as Caitlyn Clark is, literally carrying her team into the championship game last year, putting up big numbers against South Carolina to beat them, so she's capable of doing it all. But I think UCLA, as scary as a Colorado and a UConn and Iowa are, that would be, if it happens to be this way, that would be a favorable way for UCLA to carve out a path to the Final Four. And then if they have to play Stanford or USC, hey, I'm game for that. And then, hey, stay away from South Carolina. Maybe Juju beats them. Boom. Go for it. That's a path, I think, for success for UCLA this year. If you're in the Iowa regional, solid. They just got to travel across the country. But Iowa too, man, right? If they're the Albany regional, it's not like they're in Portland. That's still cross-country travel for both teams. This is all hypothetical. So I think the way it's going to play out, despite not getting a 1 seed, you avoid SC, Stanford, and South Carolina. Although I'm confident that not only can the Bruins compete against those teams, they can beat those teams. Iowa regional, your 3 seed, somebody you've already beaten on a neutral court by double figures, and it's not the mighty vaunted UConn of old, especially not having gone to stores. They're good. Don't get me wrong. A lot of these teams are good and very even on a neutral floor. But I do think the Bruins could possibly have played themselves into a path towards a Final Four berth. Now, they've got to play their best when the lights are the brightest, when the stars are shining on the court. Arguably, some of the best players who have ever taken the floor, they might have to go through to get to a Final Four this year. Still, I think this is a path that favors UCLA, if this is how it plays out. That is one of many different brackets you could play. The Bruins could be a 2 seed if Texas is a 1 seed. Then you throw USC in the Iowa. You get Juju versus Caitlyn Clark. You can mix and match and do all the favorable things. Just how deep the Pac-12 is this season, I think the Bruins will be done justice, unlike what they had to deal with last year. All right? And we can't wait till this year, Selection Sunday, Monday, whatever it may be. We're going to be excited for tournament time. And we're going to talk Pac-12 tournament next day about UCLA, Oregon State. Hopefully the season continues and continues and continues. Until then, hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. It's Zach signing off. Go Bruins.